Hi, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tech Exec Podcast, where I'll help you create teams worth leading, because that's too short to lead a mediocre team, right? As always, I'm your host, Aviv Ben-Yosef, Tech Executive Coach and Consultant, and our subject today is crafting collaboration. This is the first episode I'm recording in 2026. It's still a bit odd to even say the number out loud, but I'm starting with something that I think is highly relevant. Crafting collaboration is about making sure that your team, your organization goes a step further from just being a group of people who happen to be working together, maybe in the same room, maybe in the same Slack channel. But if there's something that's clear is that even though it's not easy, I'm not going to say anyone can get good people, but most of you can get a handful of very good people on your team, making those people collaborate in a way so that truly the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's where true leadership shines, and that's not something that's trivial. And I want to talk a bit about that today, because maybe we can help ensure that you're starting to form that sort of an organization around you this year. Collaboration, first of all, is something that does not happen naturally in many organizations because they're lacking in their actual culture from enabling that. Sometimes we actually pit people one against the other in a way that, of course, makes them not want to collaborate. And even more, other times, managers, for the sake of squeezing a few more features out the door in the next couple of sprints, which then becomes their modus operandi forever, tend to put people into silos. They almost never collaborate during the iteration, which means that you have not a team, but a handful of individuals, each working on their own things without knowing what others are doing, without really understanding. That means that you're not likely to create force multipliers within your organization, help ensure that these people grow, etc. I hope that I don't need to keep stressing why this is something that's not ideal, okay? If you're not sold about that, you've got my email in the show notes. But assuming that you're like, okay, I'm with you, Aviv, I want to create that, what do I do now? Here are a few things. First of all, and this is probably the most important bit, it's to ensure that you're not telling your people that they have to get their part done and then move it to the others. This is not actually solely within your organization. It can also be about how we collaborate with customer success, with product, etc. But in general, let's start in your home court. Ensure that people are not assuming that I will do my part and then the rest is someone else's issue. No, that's not healthy. Instead, try to create collaborative goals. The team has to ship something, the team owns a metric, owns some sort of goal on OKR, whatever. Having that, the team wins and loses together. Try to avoid having a particular person in charge of a particular thing for too long. Instead, aim to have collaborative projects where you have a few people working on things. Not only is that also healthier for the organization because it means that the knowledge is going to be shared across more people, so you don't have a single point of failure. It also means that you will get the benefit of people's expertise along the way in a bunch of different areas. It doesn't mean that everyone needs to know everything. Of course, that's usually not possible. But you will get a lot of benefit from enabling an organization where people regularly have the opportunity to see what others are doing, maybe taste it a bit, maybe collaborate a bit. From time to time, have them work on another feature that someone else has started developing, have them collaborate, have them do some pair programming at least for a task or two every iteration. That sort of stuff will ensure that the team works together. Second, ensure that your managers, if you're talking about an organization with several teams, ensure that they are not looking at each individual's team success as their own personal metric. That's the most important. Yes, teams need to succeed, but if they value their own team more than the company's success, that's an issue. Now, I've seen this happen in big organizations where people would actually think that it's perfectly fine to, for example, politically work to get the best engineers in their team in a way that actually makes the other teams have a severe lack of experience. Things were extremely imbalanced, but they poached those people within the organization in a way that actually handicapped the teams around them, or a people who politically or for, I don't know, as a vanity metric, worked so hard just to ensure that they have the biggest headcount. I know that nowadays the headcount is no longer going to be exploding too fast for most of you, and still we have to look at this as a team organization sort of thing. You cannot grab all the resources unless you actually think that your team at the end of the day will be able to also do all the things. You have to look at this as teamwork, and if the manager level is missing that, if the managers in your organization are not collaborating as a team, it is almost impossible to see the actual team act differently. Why? Because it doesn't matter what you think, they are aware of what's happening. Your managers and you yourself, you're all modeling for them what the culture is. If you don't want to create an unhealthy culture where we're backstabbing, where we're not optimizing for our collaboration, but for our own successes, you have to ensure that the management team is a team. I've got a bunch of content about that. So just search the YouTube or podcast backlog for team, and you're going to find a bunch of content about how we make the executive, the management teams work as peers, see their peers as their colleagues, people who they are collaborating with. And one last point about collaboration, you have to ensure that your team is celebrating wins together. I think that the one thing that brings people together the most is success. When we have success together, we get a lot more connected. We get these shared experiences that we're proud of. Yeah, there's benefit to shared experiences that are bad. You also get more closer to people that way. But it's a lot easier when those shared experiences are positive, when we see the results of helping one another. When I win, you win. And that means that, for example, when you're winding up a quarter, when you're starting now the next year and you're thinking about the roadmap for the quarter ahead, the year ahead, I hope you're also doing a retro to talk about all the things that went good and went bad in the previous quarter, in the previous year. And armed with that, I hope that you're taking a second and talking about all the things that the team did well together, all the points where collaboration actually made a difference. I'm sure you have at least a couple of points, even if they're not that grand, even if it's not that common yet. Have those and look at those bright spots. See how you can celebrate these. Put the people who did it on a pedestal. Make everyone around notice how important teamwork is and how much you value it. When you do that, you're really making it that much easier for people in the future to collaborate and work together. Those are a few small tips, and I assure you, every team I've worked with that put in the effort to make their teams collaborate more, to have their sprint planning be so that at least some portion of the work is work done by members together, has a bit of pair programming, has a bit of working together, has people working across teams or across their areas of expertise from time to time. All of those really pay off. Does it mean that right now in the next sprint we'll get a bit less done? Probably. But you can manage it most of the times. Don't do that if your team is in a make or break sprint. Okay. But in general, we can allow ourselves to do that. We can put in the effort as leaders to create this atmosphere, and we can really reap the rewards later once we did that. So start the effort now, and by the end of 2026, you're going to be so grateful to yourself for having chosen this area of focus. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining me. As always, if you haven't yet, do check out my newsletter. It's the best newsletter online for tech executives. I'm not the only one saying it. Every week you're going to get there this podcast, an article, a YouTube video, and a bunch of other free stuff. So check it out. Link is in the show notes, and I'll see you here next week. Ciao.